Now, let's move along to Donald Trump responding to Elon Musk launching the America Party. Obviously, Donald Trump is not impressed.
I think it's ridiculous to start a third party. We have a tremendous success with the Republican Party. The Democrats have lost their way, but it's always been a two-party system. And I think starting a third party just adds to confusion. It really seems to have been developed for two parties. Third parties have never worked. So he can have fun with it, but I think it's ridiculous.
Ami, this seems ill-advised from Elon unless he wants to splinter the centre-right vote and deliver the White House to the Democrats. I don't really know what he hopes to achieve with this America Party.
Yeah, look, the Democrats are, like we've talked about it before, the Democrats are imploding because they are embracing hard left policies. The only way the Republicans are going to squander this opportunity is by infighting and by splintering of the party. And that's what you really see. Look, the system is not set up for third parties, right? The America First Party, it's just not. It's set up for two parties. What third parties have done in the past is they've thrown the election in one way or another. And I'm afraid that's what we're going to see with the America Party, right? Because that's the way the system is kind of set up. Look, you've seen a bunch of, like I said, splintering of the Republican Party. You've seen it on a political level with the trad Republicans and the isolationist Republicans. But you've also seen it among the economics of the Republican Party. And that's actually had an even larger effect. You saw it with the Big Beautiful Bill and the fighting and infighting that was going on with that. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about. But you see it's kind of split between kind of three parties. You have the fiscal hawks who want lower debt, lower taxes, lower spending. And then you have the more economic populists like Josh Hawley, where they're looking to have more spending and lower taxes. And then you have the tech bro wing, right, which obviously Elon Musk is behind, where they're looking for, yes, they really want a focus on subsidies in technology, right? I think they're, and that's kind of because they see that in the war with China on AI, for example, they think subsidization is really important. So I think that's a significant problem for the Republican Party. And look, you see him being Elon Musk. Say he's going to primary Republicans, right? And he even threw his support behind Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie is a terrible, terrible person on the Republican map. Super anti-Israel, super isolationist, damaging to the Republican brand. You see Elon Musk lining up on Thomas Massie. That's a problem.
I think Elon is going to lose interest in this very quickly. I think he would have seen those polls. We talked about it earlier in the program where Donald Trump is the most popular president among Republicans ever, more popular than Reagan after the assassination attempt. I think he's going to look at that data and realise, really, does he want to be backing a loser, or does he want to be throwing his lot in with something that isn't ultimately going to succeed? He's a winner, and that's what he has been throughout his astonishing career. Now, let's talk about Ukraine and Russia. Donald Trump had another phone call with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Indeed, we saw Putin abruptly leave a speaking engagement to take this call. He said the president would be offended if he was kept waiting.
Заставлять себя ждать там сейчас, обидеться чуть-чуть. Спасибо вам большое, удачи.
Ami, we know it was a lengthy phone call, but not a fruitful one. What more can the US do to bring this war to an end?
Look, what's sad about this entire thing, Rita, is that we kind of know how this is going to end. And we've known how it's going to end really, really early on in this war between Ukraine and Russia, right? At the end of the day, the goal was we want to make sure they don't take over Kyiv, right? That was the main thing. And we weren't sure whether that would happen. Well, clearly, that's no longer the case. Clearly, the lines have been drawn and that the central major part of Ukraine is going to be geographically intact. But you also don't see Ukraine dislodging Russian forces from a large portion of eastern Ukraine, right, which is the Russian-speaking part of Ukraine. I think ultimately that's what it is. I think what's going to come down to is simply, and I think it's going to be letting Ukraine know that, guys, this is ultimately what it's going to be. We will ensure Right. Look, I do know. Here's what I don't want. I've been on this show and other places a vocal supporter of Ukraine. I've denounced Russia over and over again. But one thing I don't want is I do not want an offer of bringing Ukraine into the EU or into NATO. That's something I've not wanted even before this war. But ultimately, what we can do is give them security guarantees and say, look, we will make sure there will never be a takeover of Ukraine from Russia if they reinvade again. But you have to give up the enclaves that Russia controls right now, that you're simply not going to be able to dislodge them. That's the answer. I think it becomes a negotiation at this point. That's all it is.
I think reality has to set in. Ami Horowitz, thank you so much for your time tonight.